should have, could have, would have. Today, we're going to talk about modal verbs for the past. And you're also going to learn how to use these as reductions. So for example, shoulda, coulda, woulda, or should've, could've, would've. And I'm going to give you lots of examples so that you can finally understand exactly how to use these advanced modal verbs to use should, would, and could to talk about the past. Hello, my name is Jack from tofluency.com, and this is the To Fluency podcast, a place where you can learn English and listen to my English lessons from anywhere in the world. Now, before I get started, I do want to talk about a couple of things. First, I have a free book, The 5-Step Plan for English Fluency. Click the link in the description to download that. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my lessons yet, just click the subscribe button or the follow button. And if you want to take it an extra step further, if you want to do something else in addition, then click the share button and share this lesson. Now, before we talk about how to use should have, could have, and would have, let's just very quickly talk about should, could, and would. And my friend Shayna at espressoenglish.net talks about this in a very succinct way, a way that helps you understand it clearly. And I'll leave a link to her lesson in the description too. But she says, should is used for recommendation and advice. And these are general rules here. For example, if you want to lose weight, you should eat healthy food. Could is used for possibilities. For example, you can say, we could go away this weekend, right? We could go away this weekend. It's a possibility. It's something that you could do. And would is for imagining results. If I were rich, I would buy a boat. If I were rich, I would buy a boat. And this is a quick question. If you were rich, what would be the first thing you would buy? So again, the general rule is should is for recommendations or advice, could is for possibilities, and would is for imagining results. Again, I'll leave a link to this lesson in the description. Now, the good news is when we use should have, could have, and would have, that same general rule applies. So what we're doing here is we're talking about imaginary situations in the past. We're talking about things in the past by using should have, could have, and would have. So that's the first thing to know. We use should have, could have, and would have for the past. Now, this is fun because this is where you can play around with the language a little bit and also just talk about how things would have been different in the past if something else happened. It's really good fun to talk about this. But should have as well, we can use it to talk about regrets. We can use it to talk about what the best advice should have been in the past. And most people think would have is only used in the third conditional, but we don't have to use it for the third conditional. So let's start with should have. I like should have. People use this a lot. And we mainly talk about this to give advice for past events. So to give advice for past events. So before I said should is mainly used for recommendations or advice. Should have is used for recommendations or advice in the past. And a lot of the time we use this, like I said before, when talking about regrets. So imagine, let's start with an example. Imagine that my friend is running a big race tomorrow morning. So she has a big running race tomorrow morning. She's running a marathon. And as a friend, I want to give her some advice. She probably already knows this, but I say, you should go to bed early tonight. You should go to bed early tonight. So this is advice right now. However, I see her in the morning. She looks exhausted. She looks so tired. And I ask her, you look tired. What did you do? And she says, oh, I stayed up late watching that new Netflix series. And I say to her, well, you should have gone to bed earlier. You shouldn't have watched TV so late. You should have gone to bed earlier. You shouldn't have watched TV so late. So in this case, I am giving her advice for the past. I am saying what she should have done. Recommendations or advice for the past. And in this case, it's gone. You can't change the past. It's a little bit unique in a way. And I'm sure you have something similar in your own language too. But when you say you should go to bed early, you're giving advice for now or the future. But if you say you should have gone to bed earlier, you're giving advice for the past. You can give yourself advice too. For example, let's say you go to a Thanksgiving party and you think, okay, I'm not going to eat so much today. I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to eat a little bit of turkey and that's it. But you sit down, you start eating. It's delicious. So you get more. You get a second plate. You fill your plate with turkey and potatoes and vegetables. And then you get a third plate. More turkey, more potatoes, more vegetables. Your stomach starts to hurt. You feel tired. You don't want to do anything. You just want to go to bed. You can say, oh, I shouldn't have eaten so much. I shouldn't have eaten so much. Another example is, imagine that you are talking with a friend, you have a disagreement, and you say something really nasty. So instead of just talking about things naturally, you say something really nasty and you insult your friend. The next day you can say, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Now, here is a good time to practice your writing. If you're listening on a platform that has a comment section, leave an example using I shouldn't have. An actual example from your life. It could be from today, it could be from the past. It could be recent, or it could be from a long time ago. And if you're not listening on a platform that allows you to write a comment, then just use a notebook for now. You write down an example saying I shouldn't have and write that down. So should have, again, is mainly used to give advice or recommendations for past events. The event is gone, but maybe you have advice for the past. And sometimes you can learn from this. So when you say, oh, I shouldn't have eaten so much, next time, don't eat so much. Let's talk about could have now. Could have. Now, we use could have when we're talking about something that we had the ability to do, but we didn't do it. We had the ability to do something, but we didn't do it. An example from my life. When I left school, or we call it college in the UK, this is before university. So I finished college at 18 and I went to university just after finishing college. And I had the opportunity to go to various universities. And I can say, I could have gone to Newcastle University, but I went to Leeds instead. I could have gone to Newcastle University, but I went to Leeds instead. Now, this states that Newcastle University accepted me as a student, but I didn't go. I had the opportunity to go, but I didn't go. Another example is, I could have passed that test, but I didn't really work hard enough. I could have passed that test, but I didn't work hard enough. Now, again, this sounds a little bit like a third conditional, and we'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of the time, instead of using the third conditional, we can just use the past simple. Another example from Perfect English Grammar, I'll leave a link to this as well. Julie could have bought the book, but she borrowed it from the library instead. You can just say, I could have bought it, but I borrowed it instead. You had the ability to do it, but you didn't do it. Another example is this. Imagine that I go and open the fridge and I say, oh, we have no milk. You just went shopping, but we have no milk. And I'm talking to my wife here. And my wife says, well, I could have bought some, but you didn't tell me. I could have bought some, but you didn't tell me. Now, it's time to turn that last sentence into the third conditional. Are you ready? I could have bought some milk if you had told me we needed some. I could have bought some milk if you told me we needed some. However, I think that it's more common to say, I could have bought some milk, but you didn't tell me to get any. So again, it's important to think about using could have in sentences that feel like the third conditional, but we're not always using the exact third conditional. And I'll leave the examples that I'm using below in the description so you can read along and just think about these a little bit more. So could have, we're talking about something that we had the ability to do in the past, but we didn't do it. I could have gone to Newcastle University, but I went to Leeds instead. Now, before I move on to would have, there is one more example of could have, because we can use it with an element of criticism. Okay? So for example, my friends, they had this massive party, but only invited me after it started. And I can say to them, in this case, because I'm disappointed, I couldn't go because I didn't have time to go. I can tell them, oh, you could have invited me earlier. You could have invited me earlier. So we're using this with criticism. We're saying you had the possibility to invite me earlier and you didn't. And that's why I couldn't come. You could have invited me earlier. Okay, let's talk about would have now. Let's talk about would have. And we use would have when we want to imagine a result in a past. To imagine what would be different if something else had happened. Okay? Again, most people will think about would have using the third conditional. However, just like could have, we can use it in different ways too. Let's start with an example. We'll use the third conditional first. So when I was talking about university before, we had the University of Leeds and the University of Newcastle. Now, I also applied, although this isn't true, but let's just say it is true. I also applied to Oxford University, but they said no. They said, sorry, we are not accepting you as a student here. I can say, if Oxford had accepted me, I would have gone there. If Oxford had accepted me, I would have gone there. And just to follow on from this, if I had gone to Oxford University, I would have hated it. If I had gone to Oxford University, I would have hated it. So again, we're imagining results in the past. We're imagining different things happening in the past by changing the past as well. Oxford University didn't accept me as a student, but if they had accepted me, I would have gone there. Now, to use this without using that structured third conditional sentence, you can say, I would have gone to Oxford University, but they didn't accept me. I would have gone to Oxford University, but they didn't accept me. A super common example here, which is really useful, is if I had more time. People talk about this a lot. They will say things like, oh, I would have done it if I had more time. I would have come to the party if I had more time. I would have travelled more if I had more money. I would have travelled more in the past if I had more money. So again, we're talking about things in the past and imagining different results in the past if something else were different. Now let's talk about contractions and pronunciation here and how this is retracted. So in spoken English, you'll often hear should've, could've, and would've. And a lot of the time, this also gets contracted further to shoulda, woulda, coulda, or shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Okay? So instead of saying should have, you can say shoulda. I should have done it. Practice that. I should have done it. I should have done it. Again, this is giving recommendations to yourself. Oh, I didn't do it, but I should have done it. I should have done it. And then practice this one. You could have done it. You could have done it. And then I would have done it, but I didn't want to. I would have done it, but I didn't want to. Okay, hopefully that gives you a good overview of how to use should have, could have, and would have. And the key to this is practice and also understanding how it is used first before you do practice. So what I recommend doing now, what you should do now, is write some sentences using should have, could have, and would have, and make them really relevant to your life. So make them relevant to your life and talk about examples, write down examples that have happened recently. And again, if you're on a platform that allows you to do that, then do it in the comment section. If not, do it in your notes and use the grammar tool that I recommend. I'll leave the link to that in the description. And also, while you're in the description, check out my book, The 5-Step Plan for English Fluency, the resources I use for this lesson, and the other links that I'll leave down there too. And remember, be sure to subscribe to my lessons on the platform that you're listening to them right now, and then click that share button and send this lesson to a friend. You can send it by email, by messenger, by message, or just share it on a social media platform. Once you've done that, let me know, and I'll be very grateful to you. Okay, thank you again for listening. And before you go, check out the other episodes and lessons that I've made by just clicking onto my profile and listening to more lessons. Okay, thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.